In this episode, I give a summary of the Twilight 2000 creation that Jason and I did, a couple of summaries on games that I ran this week. There's a couple responses to Amy's comments on the previous podcast, and I'm hoping that there will be more. And then I might conclude with an unboxing.
Metallica, the Four Horsemen, Kill 'Em All album back when Metallica was good. And yes, breaking through the wall like the Kool-Aid Man is the rule of cool. Great example.
Well, that was Jason giving some answers or answer attempts at some of the latest songs. I won't tell you if they were right or not because the bidding is still open. But Jason's starting to accumulate some points. Apparently, not only does he like Death Clock, but he likes another heavy metal band that's pretty famous. So, Jason and I, what we did recently, we did character creation for Twilight 2000 4th edition. We did the Life Path edition, the Life Path version of the character creation. And it's pretty long, so I'm going to have it as a supplementary podcast that you can listen to. It's about an hour and a half, and it really doesn't have any clear breaks. But it's probably a good idea to separate actual play from non-play content, I think. And again, it is pretty long. And the reason, and I'll just comment about it here, the reason it's pretty long is that we just went rules as written, and it took a while for one of the roles, the at war, to occur. So Jason's character went from 18 years old to about 41 in 1d6 year increments, and he had like 8 quote unquote careers. So his character is very interesting. You'll see that his character went from a youth in a small town to a driver for some company, maybe, and then he did a stint with the police and in the military, and then he did some more driving mechanic blue collar work, and then he, frustrated with that job, in his mind he perceived lack of promotion, lack of financial success, he became a criminal. Maybe he decided a car thief for a term, and then with that money he finally was able to retire. And he decided his character is an expat, so he retired in Europe, maybe on the German-Polish border somewhere, or maybe even in Poland itself. So he'll have to work out the details. So it's a really fun character creation process. I think it's exceptional in that he did go through 8 careers before the war started. It looks like it's almost all the way. I think technically you can go to 9 careers, and then the war will automatically start after that, since the roll is a D8 and you have to roll under the roll. So maybe the war never starts if you roll an 8. I don't know. No, you have to roll under the number of careers, one under the number of careers that you have. So if you had 9 careers and if you roll an 8 or under, that's automatic, right? So I guess the formula is n-1. So anyway, that's character creation. I thought it was very interesting and exciting. It definitely helps you to create characters that are more competent than the archetype method. So there you go. And I'm hoping to get that to the table at some point, and someone can join Jason's character on the Twilight 2000 4th edition game that I'm thinking of. All right. Thank you. So I guess I went from one of the best sessions ever to a very tense session that wasn't so satisfying in my Iron Kingdoms 5e game this past Wednesday. So the characters had been in the Undercity doing dirty work and pursuing a lead to find a missing sword for the City Watch, as they were They had signed a contract to become mercenaries for the City Watch. So they escaped the sewers, jumped into a sluice, and were shot out into the river, which I guess cleaned them up a little bit after being in the sewers in the Undercity. So when they came upon shore, and this I will, with caveat, this is how the adventure is supposed to go. Spoilers if you're running the adventure Legacy of the Witchfire. And maybe what I should have done in hindsight is to read through this a bit more carefully on how this was done and shore it up. But effectively, when the characters get back to land in the city, they're arrested and accused of the murder of Father Dumas and the two nuns at the Church of Morrow, Sister Agnes and Sister Viola. And there are a lot of witnesses that have accused them, and they're threatened with, we're going to disarm you and parade you through town in manacles. And I think what happened too is, I know one of my players hates when this happens, hates and fights it with a passion, and it's understandable. You know, you're arrested. You know, you're taken away. It's heavy on the railroad. You know, and I think I misunderstood what he said, so things almost got tense to the point where they were these police City Watch men were gonna open fire, but we figured that out, that it was a misunderstanding. So the characters did negotiate. Okay, we'll just take our guns, but there's no need to. You guys can't carry all the stuff that we have because they have a lot of weapons. So they're taken through the town, escorted through the town, but it wasn't apparent that they were prisoners really. Apparently the crime was extremely violent and brutal, so the police were pretty upset about it and took him to the jailhouse. One of the players was late, so I said that I didn't know if he was coming, so I said that he ducked out with the Gobber scout that they had. And his adventure was a little different and probably more satisfying, honestly, where he got to successfully evade the watch, and get to the jailhouse on his own, sneak into the jailhouse, knock out a lieutenant, and dress in uniform. And then when the characters who had been sitting in jail for a few hours, or in the dungeon for a few hours, actually manacled and without their equipment, were then marched upstairs to talk to the captain after they were going to be spending the night in jail all night, but they had negotiated enough and recalled that the timeline didn't match. And hey, we had a bar fight last night. We were there. There's no way. We all got drunk together. They convinced the guardsmen that something was not right. So they were able to speed the timeline up, which I thought was good, and maybe just kind of a detaching from the rails a bit on how the adventure is written, because I just didn't feel right, especially since it was only because of witnesses. They talked to the captain. He let him look at the witness notes and the police reports, and they're like, "This is ridiculous." Because honestly, the way I feel like there needs to be a bit more advice on how to run this encounter. Is very railroady without explanation, and the timeline doesn't really match. So the victims were allegedly killed in the night, but then by then weren't the players arrested before they went off to the steamworks to find the Gobber Scout in the morning. It's my fault. I should have read through it and either tossed it out or had it go down a bit more subtly. But that's okay. I think we got back on track. They convinced the captain. The captain was called off because while all this was happening, apparently it is a big distraction, and having the City Watch go on a manhunt while undead pour from out of the Undercity into the town. So it's like the longest night all over again. And we left it with the captain giving them a box of potions, and them, because of the mistake, them able to convince him to let him borrow the rust bucket jack that had been confiscated in a previous raid. And now we decided to stop there while the players try to fix up the jack, which is bigger and better maybe, but it has some issues. Fix up the jack and then head into town because they kind of know where to go based on their investigations in the Undercity. So we'll pick up that next week, I hope, and I'll try to make it less railroady. And speaking of trains, well, I started another Deadlands game. So this is our Thursday night, every other, to fill in the same spot that I would play the Warhammer Fantasy. And currently it's our Thursday sort of anchorites group consisting of Jason Connerly of Nerds Variety RPG Cast, Arlen Walker of Live from Pelham's Wasteland, and also Joe Richter from Hindsightless, and sometimes Eric Salzwedel from Omega 3 Variety Chicken Coop podcast. So we've been running Barbarians of Lemuria, which Jason Connerly is running, but since Eric is pretty busy this summer and this month, he can play, I think, one time during the month, so that's when we're going to continue Barbarians of Lemuria. So they asked me to step in and run something. We decided on Deadlands. So everyone except for Eric Salzwedel was playing, but my friend Vince from the home group joined in since he likes Savage Worlds and Deadlands. So I had them pick archetypes that they customized a little bit, and I set up the game on the Roll20 using the Savage Worlds and the Deadlands add-ons. And just a slight comment on that. They have some action cards customized for Deadlands, and I'm not a fan of them. I think I'll go to the regular suede action cards next time. It's hard to read the Deadlands cards. They have a strange styling, but that's just me. Your visuals might be better. So anyway, the players consist of, like I said, Jason Connerly. He's playing a Sawbones named Doc Bones McCoy. There's a reference there, if you can't catch it, to Star Trek. Ha ha. And then you have Joe Richter playing the gunslinger named Hezekiah. I don't remember his last name, but I'm sure it's a gunslinger reference. And then there is or Dark Tower reference. Thank you for that correction, mental correction. And then there is Arlen Walker he's playing a U.S. Marshal named Bill Marshall. And Vince is playing a bounty hunter named Candelario Perdición, or CAD for short, since it's a mouthful of a name. That sounds great. So for inspiration, I took the outline from a wild cards session of Lawless, spoiler alert, but it definitely turns out very different. There are some key players and some things that go on, but it's just an outline really, and I adapted it to my players and changed some things already. So it was actually pretty fun to run. I think Jason is going to talk about it in his podcast from a player perspective. So for me, it was cool working off the outline. I grabbed what was nice is that in the summary of the outline, the author put, and I'll put this in the show notes too, for the podcast if you want to run it. Hopefully my players watch it. Hopefully my players won't watch it for spoilers because it could give some hints, at least the main things. But I've changed some things too, so whatever. So anyway, they start off on a train. They're going to a town called Flathead, Kansas to investigate the loss of communication. They're working for Joshua Chamberlain of Empire Rail. And they decided various relationships with Chamberlain and each other. The train stops. There's this blockage in the road. Yes, I know that, as Arlen Walker pointed out, trains have cattle guards, but just in case, I think the the conductors were, the train workers were a bit skittish because of potential ambush or whatever, so they wanted these aces to go check it out. These agents to go further that were hired by the rail company to check it out. They find it's a injured steer, so they justifiably put it out of its misery, remove it from the tracks. Some great rolls there. Cad notices something out there in the tall grass, but he steels himself. He's shaken by it, but not stirred up or afeared. Using some of the meta currency bennies to make sure he was not. And they don't go out into the grass, so they jump back on the train, and the train continues into Flat Edge, which stinks to high heaven. But they don't see that. They see livestock, but not many that would warrant that smell. And there's flies everywhere. The people are rude and mean. Bill Marshall intimidates one to talk to them briefly. He points to the empty Empire office and at the end of the platform and to the saloon in town, and then runs away when Cad starts vomiting because of the stench. But old Sawbones, he's got some tricks up his sleeve, so he fashions something to help with the stench, to calm down Cad's stomach, and the rest of them, put that on their handkerchief or whatever to keep the smell away, which is a great thing. It's a good. It's nice to have good players that pay attention to detail and like to do things that are fun or that they feel their characters would do. It's a good group. I'm very happy. Lots of heavy leaning into the role play by everyone, and I thought it was cool. So I know that Arlen and Jason have played a lot of Savage Worlds, especially this edition. But this is Joe's first introduction to Savage Worlds, and Vince played previous editions but hasn't played the latest edition. So, and it was fun to get some of the people from my home group together with some of the anchorites. So then after they investigated the Empire offices, they actually busted in because it was empty and locked, and they found a few clues that things don't quite add up to the timeline that they were given. So they continue to investigate in the saloon. The saloon people are rude, but then someone is nice to them, does a few hands of cards, says, hey, if you want information, go out in the back. Of course, it's a setup, and a fist fight. Well, it's supposed to be a fist fight ensues, but there is some guns drawn and people shot, and that took a bit of time in our session. It's the first time doing combat, which was fine. And then they role play it up and get into the accents, and it's pretty fun. So they drag these guys back. Bones patches up the leader of this gang, who turned out to be the bounty that Cad was looking for. He's a bounty hunter. So they take him back to the Empire offices where they're going to hole up. And then we're going to continue from there. Oh, another strange item that they found. Doc McCoy crawled underneath the platform and found a very large scale. Oh, and the steer had been bitten by what looked like an alligator, and Bones decided he's from the southeast, so he kind of knew that. Well, he also rolled fantastic on his science roll. Like, I think he got a super raise, but even though you just need one raise in Savage World, so it was pretty neat. Actually, Jason was rolling on fire with regards to the skill rolls. He also gunned down someone who was attacking charging one of his buddies. So there you go. Jason might have won that session if there's a winner, but I think we all won because it was a really great first episode of our Deadlands High Plains Heroes. And I'm definitely grateful for the Wildcards Lawless offering. It's given me some great inspiration, and now I can fold this, if we decide to continue. I was thinking about it this morning, into a bigger campaign with some interesting canonical players into the mix. That is, thrown into the mix.
while the Civil War was going to happen no matter what, probably, go back and look at the nullification crisis that Andrew Jackson stomped down. But chances are there was going to be a Civil War, but there's no question that when the Civil War happened, the straw that broke camel's back and the reason it happened was slavery. It was determined as soon as Abraham Lincoln was elected, before he even assumed office. And all you have to do is look at the papers, the acts of succession. I might not be using the right term. I'm sitting in the car. I'm not looking it up. But if you look at the articles of secession, right? You look at basically the paperwork each state filed when they seceded from the Union, or attempted to secede from the Union, as we found out. They all mention slavery in there. So I don't think it's a big question.
Hey, Jason, thank you for that comment. That's in response to Amy's comments in the interview. She talked about Kate Warren and Kate Warren's involvement in the Civil War, and it sounds like her and Jason agree on why the Civil War was started. A little political here, but hey, truth is important.
Yo, Carl, I really enjoyed your interview with Amy. I thought she had awesome stuff to say. Really great stuff. I hope she comes back on the show again. That'd be fantastic. Her character sounds super cool. And yeah, it's just a great episode. Your episodes have finally started showing up on iTunes again, which makes me happy because that's my platform that I use the most, even though it's really been pissing me off lately. But anyway, man, keep up the great work, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace out.
Thanks, Joe, for the comments. I'll pass that along to Amy. And I want to get her back on. Maybe even get her in some of the games with you guys as well. So I think she has a lot of insight, and she has a really much better podcast voice than I do. So very even-toned, no ums, very polished. But hey, that's Amy. So it'd be great if we can encourage people to call in and continue to comment on what she said. So keep it up and keep it on. Again, thanks for the call, Joe. Okay. Last segment, I think, in this podcast, meeting unboxing. So I got a priority mail package that is 14 by 12 by 3.5. It is from a priority mail from Paizo. Interesting. So let me open this bad boy up. I'm just going to cut it because I don't feel like messing with trying to muscle my way through some flaps. Inside there are multiple packages and some air bubbles. So these are little sub envelopes, the typical Paizo ones they have that are the rippy kind. You can hear that rip. So let's see what I got. Ooh. Right. I think it looks like all three, since Paizo has been unfortunately behind on their subs and their printing. And I opened in two little envelope size things. It is all three of the latest mini adventure path, the Fists of the Ruby Phoenix adventure path, parts 1, 2, and 3. So they are Despair on Danger Island, Ready, Fight, and King of the Mountain. And it looks like it's a island tournament that the player characters are invited to. And what's very interesting, I think, is that this adventure starts at 11th level. And the first book goes to level 15. The second book goes to level 18. So the third book, I'm assuming, and yes, I am correct, goes to level 20. So this is like some high-end stuff for some high-end play for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. I really want to get back into some Pathfinder 2nd Edition, so maybe if they have the Roll20, or I can DIY this since I'm a subscriber and I get the PDFs, I can put this thing together and have you guys create characters at 11th level. and then go from there. Pretty cool. It's a 3-parter. So it looks like the last 2 Adventure Paths Reprise, though, have been 3-parters. So I think the previous one was called the Abomination Vaults, I believe. It takes place in Absalom, and you explore a dungeon. So it's like a mega dungeon crawl in 3 parts. And then this one maybe takes off from there. I don't know. Maybe it's a sequel. I'll have to check that out. Or maybe you can run them together. I think that one goes from levels 1 to 10 or 1 to 11. Right? So, cool. Fists of the Ruby Phoenix. Okay, that's all, folks. I think I'm going to conclude this one. And again, I did not put the actual play, quote-unquote play content of character creation. I put that in a separate, so that'll be 11.1, if I'm able to put 11.1 on the little publisher information. And we'll talk to you guys again. So look forward to these 2 coming out here right soon.